Hello, and welcome to Bridgeford Trust Company's Delivering Direction and Control podcast series. Our podcast series is designed to educate, challenge, and inspire listeners while keeping you updated on developments regarding modern trust law and powerful planning opportunities available, all in an effort to deliver direction and control to clients and their advisors.
Well, everybody, this is David Warren here again with another installment of our podcast series. Of course, I'm chairman of our board and one of our co-founders. And I always say at the beginning how this is probably my favorite part of my week. Part of my job is the ability to talk to friends and thought leaders from not just across the country, but around the world. And we've just been so humbled by not only the caliber of thought leadership that has joined us, but also the followership and people who are really paying attention to the podcast, which is unbelievably humbling, because we're talking about issues that are I'm passionate about always on these podcasts, and I always love the direction that they go in. And today is absolutely no exception. I've been looking forward to this for a while, since our first conference call with this law firm. So these three brilliant attorneys are my new friends and new friends to Bridgeford, but in many ways it feels like we've been kindred spirits for a long time, because we quickly align with the way that we go to market and the way we look at service. And I'm excited to have you get to know all three of these fine attorneys and what makes them each different and their firm different, because there definitely is a special spark here with this firm, which is growing quickly, and we'll get to that. And I love the practice areas that you were in. I saw the recent development of an immigration attorney that just joined you from DHS. So I would definitely want to talk about that. And that's a topic anyway we were going to touch on, because we can't ignore what's going on around us in the world and across the country. So with that, Deirdre, why don't you say hello? Tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've been with the firm.
Excellent. So I have been practicing tax, trust, and estate law for, I'm going to say, more decades than I probably want to name right now. While we focus our practice, our physical location, New York and New Jersey, we're able to work across country, and our relationship with Bridgeford is one of that. We live in a state where there is a high state income tax, and we do a lot of planning for people around income tax, and that's sort of how we got together with things. We love what we do. We love being able to share good planning ideas with people. We love being able to share with people how to pay your legal minimum in taxes. We love to be able to talk to people about what does it look like to design an inheritance, to design a legacy for your family, and what do you really practically need to be thinking about in terms of doing that. And I've been practicing long enough now that I've seen those plans go into fruition, and now working with the next generation, and it's just helping people be more intelligent about the wealth that they have. I mean, we really appreciate this opportunity, because all of us can say our family members do not get nearly as excited about the issues that we talk about as we do. So we appreciate the forum.
Yeah, I always laugh. People say they think I've lost my mind because I hated trust in the States when I was in law school. And now I own a trust company, and all I do is run around and talk about modern trust law. So maybe I do need some help along the way. Speaking of taxation, Dan, I know you're in the middle of a crunch time right now, so thank you for taking the time, and hopefully you've had a lot of coffee over the last couple of days to keep you going. But please tell our audience about you and what you do for the firm.
Sure. So my practice area is closely held businesses, trust and estate planning and administration. But kind of the heart of what we do is work for and with people. Where I think at a lot of places, when you work for a business, you're working for the business, and you're working for the corporation and doing all that kind of stuff. But generally, my practice is that while the business may be the quote unquote client, I'm working for the primary shareholder, the primary officer and owner of the company. And so we get an opportunity to know not just how their business operates, but how their family operates, and how those two things play together. Because for many business owners, many entrepreneurs, their business is the bulk, if not more than half of what their overall estate is. And they're looking to their business to provide for not their kids, but their grandkids and their great grandkids. And how do they do that? And it's a great opportunity to work with individuals and hear what they want to do with their families, what they want their families to be able to do long into the future.
Absolutely. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, Maria, tell us about you.
Thank you, David. So I am an immigrant. I'm from Colombia originally. I'm an attorney in Colombia. I moved to New York many years ago. I'm not going to say how many. Um, I went to school in New York and I sat for the bar, and I've been practicing for the past years in New York. I specialize in trust and estates, also a lot of taxes, and organically my practice has grown more and more about providing for the affluent immigrants, people
Mhm.
that live in Colombia that have assets here, and vice versa, and
Mhm.
also like a multi-jurisdictional approach, right? So obviously I speak Spanish, so that opens the door for me not only for Latin America but also Spain. So we are, as I said, organically I'm trying to open my practice to things of that nature. I've been with Porzio for how many months? We have the same time, me and Dan, almost five
Just shy
years.
of 5 years now.
Right.
Excellent.
So and it's been a great experience because we together as a team we've been able to expand our practice, the way that we do business, as the pandemic opened up a lot of the state lines, and able to partner with counsel in other states. So we now don't limit ourselves to just New York or just New Jersey. We're actually reaching out, and that's why our relationship with you is so important, because we are providing those services through partners like Bridgeford.
No, I love that you have that focus on the international space. We've talked about that's a huge passion point for Bridgeford, probably our fastest growing part of our business, and frankly, a lot of our brothers and sisters, competitors across the top tier trust jurisdictions, I'm finding are more and more pulling out of it for various reasons. And so, I think now more than ever, these foreign grantor trusts are needed, and we'll talk more about your practice in a second. What I want to get clear for everybody is your footprint. And what I neglected to mention at the beginning, because I was so excited to talk to you guys, is the name of your firm, Porzio, Bromberg and Newman. And I should have led with that. So I'll say it 16 or 17 more times before we end today. But all joking aside, it's a powerhouse of a firm. Tell me, Deirdre, your locations, and I'm particularly interested in your Ocean City location because I grew up in Vineland and spent a lot of time there. And if I knew you were there, maybe I would not have started Bridgeford and gone to work for you in Ocean City, New Jersey.
So that could be the case. So, and first, I'm gonna make it easy for you. You can use Porzio, and no shade to the other gentleman, but it'll be easier for the conversation. So Porzio has offices up and down the East Coast. So we have our main offices in New Jersey. We have offices in New York, in Massachusetts, down in Trenton. We have a lobbying effort in New Jersey as well, a lobbying
Mm-hmm.
arm.
Mm-hmm.
Going all the way down, we have an office in Delaware. Our newest offices are in the western part of New Jersey, Philadelphia, and then we just opened up an office in Naples, Florida, in November of this past year. Also, very unique to us, we have an office in the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, which many law firms do not have. And obviously, Maria can talk more about that. But Puerto Rico is very exciting for us because it is a stepping point from Latin America into the United States. And for anyone here who is unaware of this, if you are a resident of Puerto Rico, your federal tax rate is 4%. So because of that, we have numerous clients that because of the type of wealth that they have, the income that they have, Puerto Rico is an excellent tax planning jurisdiction for them. And we're very excited to be able to support them with it. And it's just not a bad place to live, I have to say. So
Well, for sure. No, it's one of the differentiating aspects of the firm that excites me is that you have that office in Puerto Rico. I've been hearing about it for years in terms of the tax play, and actually we have a fair amount of residents that have found their way into South Dakota over the years as well for trust planning. So congratulations on really being thought leaders in that space. And you're not just talking about doing international work, you're actually in the international arena. And I think that's impressive. Well, I mean, I would love to sort of shift gears on the three of you for a moment and kind of go into some different like areas of discussion. I'm very interested to get the three of you to comment on various aspects of what it is about our business that is so vital right now, in particular, to our clients and the families that we work with and prospective families. And it's really all around what we can't ignore is happening, which is the chaos and a degree of uncertainty that has been a theme of this podcast, at least for me, in the conversations I've had in the last 18 months with, again, thought leaders from all over the world. And really every conference I attend and every time I have an opportunity to speak, you can't not talk about these issues, or rather you can't talk about these issues and not acknowledge the craziness coming out of Washington. And it's not a political statement. it's a statement of fact. And so we have to address it. And in order to do the best we can for families, we have to address it. And one of the things I wanted to kind of go to directly, because it's top of mind always, it seems, in the last 18 months, is the concept of asset protection. So many of the people that come to us because they've seen a podcast or they've seen something that we've written, there are two things they're worried about more now than ever, and it's asset protection and privacy. And I want to split them and get each of you to comment on that. So, Deirdre, why don't you take the lead? How does your firm, how do you, the three of you, and you each, I want to hear your answers, kind of approach the asset protection discussion? Because it's pretty red hot right now.
Yeah, so I'm going to say we're going to take it up a level, David. So every client that we speak to, no matter where they are in their stage of life or their stage of wealth, right? We lead with asset protection. Doing estate planning, doing tax planning, doing trust planning, doing planning is about protecting your assets. For some people, that might be from taxes, right? For other people, that might be ensuring that their business can succeed without them, right? For others, there could be some family dynamics that need some thought around. And people have adult special needs children, so asset protection is really what we lead with because that's the purpose of doing planning and designing what an inheritance and a strategy looks like, as opposed to reacting to things that are going on. But to your point, it's been very hard to do that level of planning when the playing board just keeps shifting on us, right? Because we're not looking out over the next 18 months. We're looking out over the next 4 or 5 generations, potentially more in terms of the wealth that's being created, particularly for our entrepreneurial folks who've created a lot of wealth through their own businesses that they've had. So, from an asset protection standpoint, we think everybody deserves asset protection. And the issue is, how do you educate people around it? Because you still have people that are like, oh, well, trusts are for I'm just going to use Rockefellers. Trusts aren't for me. And our philosophy is, Dan, Maria, who are trusts for?
Everyone.
Everyone, right?
Absolutely.
That now, not everybody needs a South Dakota trust with a Bridgeford, right? Because not everybody has that level of complexity, but more people do, because then they're like, well, Uncle Jerry's going to be the trustee, right? Maria, how much litigation do you do around Uncle Jerry acting as a trustee?
Plenty.
And Uncle Jerry's not a bad person. Uncle Jerry just doesn't necessarily have the skill set to be a good fiduciary of the assets, right?
Plus, he's a comedian. He shouldn't be.
He shouldn't be doing. He shouldn't be doing anything.
Seinfeld, right? Sorry,
And we try to. I'm trying to put this in play here, but it's really thinking. I think one of the things that we really focus on is we talk about being client centric, and part of being client centric is giving practical guidance for how things are going to work, not from the trust document standpoint, not from the tax standpoint, but how do we use who the trustee is to create educational values around the money before people get the money, right? How do we try to future-proof things that could happen in drafting documents that have flexibility? I don't know if taxes are going to be 25 years from now. I mean, we may not know if taxes are going to be 2.5 years from now, right? But how do we create documentation that has a legacy aspect that has flexibility to it? And that's really where we see the value. And all of it goes back to what you said, David, is asset protection. And everyone worked hard for their assets, whatever they are, and they deserve to be able to direct their assets in the way that they want them to be directed.
No, I think that's perfectly said. I love it. That's why we're so well connected and work so well together. I completely agree. And I always say the same thing. I think everybody's entitled to a degree of asset protection. And not, of course, nefarious people, which I'm going to go to Dan on this point, because I have often said on this podcast that, I've been admonished around the country not to use the phrase asset protection because somehow it denotes nefarious behavior. And so I should call it something different, which I refuse to, because it is what it is. And I'm not changing the moniker just because somebody makes somebody uncomfortable. But talk to me about that, Dan. I mean, you all three are doing sophisticated planning, but we've been criticized a bit in certain publications, right? And the presumption somehow is that we're dealing with bad actors and these people are terrible people. And I'm going to get to you on this point too, Maria, because it's even worse from an international perspective. But Dan, talk about your response to that.
Sure. So I work with a lot of families that one of the first questions we ask is, what do you want to have happen to your stuff when you're not around? Or what do you want to have happen to stuff when you give it to your kids. And never do they say, I hope my future ex-son or daughter-in-law gets it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That has never been the answer. Usually, when we talk about that, I say things to them like, listen, you pay me to hate your future child-in-law. Right? You can love them as much as you
So
want,
that's
and
a
you want me
quote.
to protect your
That quote
kids.
should be on your website.
I
You
love
want
it.
to protect
I
your
love that.
kids and your grandkids to make sure that, listen, 50% of marriages end in divorce. If your child is one of those ending in divorce, we want to make sure that the assets are still for your child and for your grandchildren. So it's not because you or your child is doing something illegal and you need to protect your assets. It's because normal everyday life pops up and gets in the way. And if we can in some way prevent that kind of uncertainty while still being flexible enough that your kids and your grandkids can make changes based on changes in tax law, that we're pretty good at kind of guessing where that's going to end up, but that's what it is. It's a guess, right? We don't know 10 years from now whether or not certain tax law changes are going to happen.
I mean, tariffs, no tariffs, wars,
Listen,
no wars. Who knows?
It's a whole wild west on that one, right? So we want to draft in a way that it makes it possible to make changes, but we're protecting from everyday life.
Yeah.
Right? This isn't people who are doing something illegal and they need to hide their assets so the federal government can't get it. This is people who are putting assets away to preserve the ability to pay for their grandchildren's education.
Right.
And ability to ensure that their children have a backstop. So if something horrible happens in their life, those assets are there to protect them. It has nothing to do with, we say jokingly we're hiding assets. We're hiding it from things that happen to everybody. And we want to make sure we protect you.
Well, and sometimes we're protecting them from themselves. We did a whole series on the Succession show, the HBO Succession show, which I fell in love with, not just because it was a really good show, but the lessons from Succession are real and applicable. And so I think you hit on it a little bit there. I mean, in addition to making sure there's money for college 3 generations down the road, we also want to make sure 3 generations down the road doesn't destroy themselves. And that's where things like the dynasty trusts and all the things that you all talk about all the time are so compelling. And usually you kind of hit on that as well. And I think that when somebody criticizes me, and it's happened a fair amount, and I was recently caught in an interview that I hope is handled properly by NPR. But they tried to lay a trap for me to admit certain things about our industry, which I wouldn't, and I don't believe to be true. So I know there is a strain of thought out there that the 4 of us are not superheroes, and I go in the opposite direction and say, well, actually we are, because in addition to everything you just said and I said about protecting the next generation from themselves, it's pretty virtuous and important work, and I'm not going to apologize for it. And which brings me to you, Maria. I thank you for saying at the beginning you're an immigrant. I'm very happy you're here in the United States, and I'm excited to understand more about your perspective. But you've seen over the years, I'm sure, this proliferation of the United States becoming a privacy haven and a tax haven, as a protection haven. And everybody hates the word haven. I know I need to qualify it, but if the New York Times can use it, I can use it. So the point is, still, despite the craziness of our country in the last 20 months, I still would argue that most people around the globe still believe the United States is the most stable economy, the most stable banking system, the most stable around privacy and asset protection. So that brings me to you, Maria, because I am so intrigued by how you were going to respond to what I'm about to say. Part of the reason I think some other trust companies will not participate in working with international families, and in some cases families specifically from Latin America, is because there is a perception that because they want to come to the United States, something is wrong, right? They're by bad actors by definition. And maybe it's because the color of their skin is a little different. I don't know. I mean, I've questioned that, and I've had arguments about that. And obviously Bridgeford takes a whole different position. And I believe anybody who wants a U.S. trust is entitled to it as long as they pass our due diligence and background check. But Maria, talk to me about that perspective, because you're in the international arena. Obviously, you have your Puerto Rican office, which again I applaud and cheer on. But how have you handled that, and have you had to confront that?
Well, that's very interesting, because being Colombian, we have dealt with the stigma all of our lives. For Colombians that are living abroad, have always had to deal with the comments about drugs and drug dealing, and so and the joke about who your family is, etc.
Yeah.
But joking
They don't talk
aside,
about coffee. They don't talk about your coffee.
no,
They say,
I have to say the perception has changed, thankfully, because social media and everything. But obviously, it's something that is on scale. And, like I, in my professional life, have encountered to this day the off-color comment that I know how to handle now. But at the beginning, I was like shocked, as a professional or not professional, saying this in a professional setting. But one of the issues is that obviously there's a basic ignorance about Latin America. Everybody, like very ignorant people that have never traveled, think that everybody's poor when most of the wealthy families are in Latin America. We have rich people, we have poor people, we have families that own many, many assets here. So first of all, it's ignorance. Second of all, it's kind of that perception that probably they're trying to clean assets by opening things here without thinking that, for instance, Colombia is one of the most highly regulated countries because of our drug history.
I'm glad you said that.
So
Yeah.
money coming in, like I give you an example, you cannot just send money down to my mom to buy an apartment if I wanted to buy it. It has to go through the central bank in Colombia. They have to open like a case. They record the amount of foreign currency that you're putting in the country. So when you want to sell the asset, you have to go through the same process. If you just send, a suitcase full of money, that you can still buy your property, but that's going to be problematic when you want to sell. Same way that you are taking the money out. Colombia has a very complex tax system in many ways. It's very similar to the US. So there's a lot of regulation on who does what. The US is also very well known because they have, they do check everything. So when you have investors from other countries, they already prepare to answer all the questions, right? They know that here someone is going to tell them no. It's not like in our country, they're like, well, maybe we can work around. And at the end, the answer is no. But here, like if you're reaching out to someone, for instance, someone like yourself or us, we're going to say, that's great that you want to do it, but you're going to need to provide all this documentation. You have to justify this income. You have to justify the investment.
Well, the same for U.S. citizens too. It applies to everybody,
exactly.
Right?
And so that is really more the ignorance of like what we have known what South America is, what the relations with drugs and things is. Like the people just come illegally, or they're undocumented. That's really part of the conception, even at very high level.
Right.
So you will see professionals that deal with international. You will never have this commentary from them because they know already their clients and they know how things work, and it's a whole different environment. Like the questions are different. They ask about your country in the best way. They have travel. They have clients everywhere. They have local counsel in different countries. So people that are dealing in the international side of things are very used to what the other countries have to offer.
So it's a uniquely American ignorance, is what I'm hearing you say.
I think it's like I feel, and I'm American too, but I feel that it's like we want to perpetuate that ignorance on purpose sometimes, and I'm telling you, it has changed since I first moved here, and even people a generation before me. But I think it continues a little bit at a professional level, where is this money coming from? Who is this people? How they make the money?
Absolutely.
Do they have enough? So I think that's really where the perception of being poor fails.
But not directly. In 2026, it's still prevalent, and that's disgusting to me. I've been involved with conversations as recent as this over the weekend. I'm still shocked at what comes out of people's mouths in this country. And so, again, that's I say passion point, and it's for real at Bridgeford. I mean, I'm an adamant believer that if people want to be here with their trusts or with their family, they should be able to be here, which is a great segue into your immigration practice. Congratulations on your new hire, Deirdre. Why don't you talk about that, talk about the hire, and then I want to get a little deeper and get all of your perspectives on it, because the immigration conversation is probably as red hot or more so now than even asset protection is how we led. So Deirdre, first of all, tell me about the practice, tell me about your new hire.
Yes. So our new hire is coming to us from the DHS. We have a very large education practice at our firm where we are supporting schools, public schools, private schools, all the way up through university level in New Jersey. And obviously, for individuals that are having students in school. People have seen things around the country. It's very concerning for school administrators about how it is that they, as an institution, properly deal with these issues. And in particular, in New Jersey, the state rules, there are many new state level initiatives that are putting some constraints on what the federal agents can do within the state of New Jersey, right? And
Mhm.
as institution, this creates a lot of concern. So now, institu- educational institutions are businesses, right? So now let's move it out to the private businesses. So private businesses are having these same issues because the question is, what do we do? We haven't been involved in immigration before. This, all we know is that so and so works for us, right? What is it that we do as an institution to be able to do things? And then to be able to have those institutions and business organizations navigate what their role legally is
Mhm.
and navigate what they can and cannot do from what their emotional reaction might be to a situation,
Sure.
right? So we're providing guidance on those areas. And then, even on a broader scope, one of the issues that we've had, because as Dan mentioned, we represent a huge number of closely held businesses, right? The visa program for workers, and Maria can speak to this because she originally came in on a working program. We have clients that depend on non-US talent. Restaurant businesses, as an example, depend on non-US talent, but you don't know year to year if the person who has worked with you for 20 years is going to be able to work for you again, right? And these are businesses that employ many people in the community. Many of them, in my example, are in the tourism industry, which is
Mhm.
providing additional dollars for communities, right?
Mhm.
So we're still working not only on the immediate level, but then on the larger level of how can you get the talent that you need from the global talent marketplace to be able to support your business growth, because business growth is what drives community growth, because then people come and get jobs there, they buy houses there, they put their kids in the school system and things along those lines. So much of it comes out of, again, from our institutions that we represent, but also for our closely held businesses, because this is both an immediate issue that they may need advice and counsel on, as well as a larger issue of how do I keep growing my practice. Going back to our Puerto Rico office, many of our clients are establishing back office operations in Puerto Rico, meaning that they're utilizing the talent base in Puerto Rico for doing their CFO type work, their administrative work, whatever the case may be, and entering into a shared services agreement. That's amazing tax planning, because businesses in Puerto Rico also pay 4% federal income tax in terms
Right.
of what it is that they do.
Mhm.
So from that perspective, there's a lot of this globalization that our immigration policies aren't necessarily aligned with. And at the end of the day, for our business owners, yes, we're supporting the owner's asset protection and legacy and wealth growth, but that comes from supporting the engine, which is the business that is creating that legacy in the first place. And then the larger impact that that has on our community by making sure that we're, raising the standard of living for everyone around us. I just
Absolutely.
got really passionate there. I'm going to step off my soapbox.
No, no,
David, you
no,
did know
no.
that was going to happen when you invited me into that question. So
That's
I'm
why
out.
that's why you're here, Deirdre. That's exactly why you're here. You've said what I was thinking. So Dan, how do you keep up? How does your firm keep up? I mean, it's interesting. Deirdre talks about how quickly this landscape is changing, how incongruent it is, it seems, with traditional ideas of business, and perhaps even the American dream. So how do you? I mean, it cascades into every aspect of the practice and everything you do. But when I practiced law, before Al Gore invented the internet, we had you went to Westlaw and Lexis and whatever. But I mean, things are moving so quickly now with AI, particularly in the immigration space and also estate planning and everything, all these. What are you doing to stay on top of all this? Because there's only 24 hours in a day, right?
Yes, those 24 hours get more and more compact. But I think we as a team and as a firm, we're very good about doing things that are not just your traditional research, right? It's not just relying on Westlaw or Lexis or anything like that. We're big proponents of reading what's going on in the world, right? Actually reading the news and knowing what's happening,
Yeah.
because that helps us to make better predictions of where things are headed. It helps us kind of keep aware of what issues are popping up, right? Sometimes for our clients, I have a client who is in the trucking industry, and the most recent issue he's come up with is, hey, I have to drive certain pieces of equipment into Canada on a weekly basis, and one of my guys is just a green card holder. What happens when he crosses the border? Is he going to be allowed back in? Right. And this is an issue that would have never come across my plate years ago. But now, given the environment that we're operating in, that was a big concern for them. Right. And his concern and other people's concern was, now that we're doing a lot of international work, we might be focused and located in New Jersey, but we do a lot of shipping to Europe, or we do shipping to Asia. How does that affect what's going on? And I think we are, as counsel, and we're forced to be very aware of what's happening in the world around us. And it's more than just hoping somebody tells me what's going on. It's actively looking out for those kinds of things. And sometimes it's listening to podcasts similar to this. Sometimes it is, reading random articles. And frankly, sometimes it's social media, right? Watching some things on TikTok, on Instagram, and seeing what other people are kind of talking about, what's important to them, can sometimes give us, a starting point for what areas we should be looking at.
Yeah, but isn't that the problem, though? I mean, and Maria, I'm saving you for last on purpose because I'm really interested in your thoughts on all of this, on this topic. But Dan, you hit on something that I've been struggling with, and I struggle with my kids who are all in their 20s now. This notion of fake news, and in order for something to be true, all you have to do is say it today. Often in some of the cable networks. So, we're supposed to be, you in particular, but all of us are, have an obligation to do what's best for our clients, obviously. And even though I don't practice law anymore, we do Bridgeford all day, every day. But it's to synthesize the machine of information, right? Or not the machine, I guess, the wall of information, and what's true, what isn't. I mean, as lawyers, how do you even know anymore? I mean, even AI can lie to you if you're not careful, right? That's why judges, I know, are so concerned about lawyers writing briefs using AI. I've been reading a lot of articles about that. So I don't mean to sound so pessimistic, but there are times, and I don't think of myself as dumb, obtuse a lot, but maybe that's a better word than dumb. But there are times I don't know the actual veracity of what I'm reading or seeing, even if it's a video. So how do we make any reasonable decisions for our clients if we're not always 100% sure what we're looking at is correct?
Sure. So I think part of that is, are you looking at single source, or are you looking at multiple places that are getting the same information, right? I have a 12-year-old at home who is all over TikTok. She loves it, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes she comes to me and she says, "Oh, I learned this." I'm like, "That's not true. Like, why would you think that is remotely true?" And she's like, "No, they said it on TikTok." I said, "Well, that doesn't make it true. That just means somebody said it. And now you have to do the next step and find out, is it real?" And so,
well, TikTok, the president, whatever, right? You just say it, and then it becomes true.
If you say it enough times, it becomes fact, right? But I think we have to be the objective source for our client. Where, yes, there's 1,000 people saying that 2 + 2 = 5, but I'm going to show you how 2 + 2, in fact, only equals 4. Right. And so that's kind of our role, is to cut through a lot of the mess and cut through a lot of the creative facts.
Well, I would just say it more bluntly. Not to interrupt you. I'll say it even more direct. Sorry to interrupt you, just because it's such a hot topic for me. An emotional one. I mean, what about the conspiracy theory wackos running around convincing everybody the sky is red, right? And I think it has fueled so much hatred in this country, and that's why I'm sticking to the immigration question topic on purpose. And I want to take this now back to Maria, because there's so much disinformation, like they're eating the dogs and they're eating the cats kind of thing, right? That somehow is spoken, and half the country, I still think, believes that's true. So Maria, talk about it from your perspective in the international arena, and how are you distilling the information, and how are you getting the right information to the families that want to come here, or that are here and scared about getting sent out of the country?
So, we have progressed from a time when the ignorance was just based on, I read on Google that I could do a document this way, or I could come here. Mm-hmm. So now that's compounded with the political aspect of immigration and what happens. I unfortunately have had cases where people come and say, we naturalized citizens, but we're afraid that they're going to come and take things away from us. And it's always the same concern. The government is going to take it away from us. The government is going to keep everything, and we don't have any recourse. So it's very hard, not that hard, but we have to navigate the fear factor of the fake media and the fake news and bring it down to a level that people can understand.
Right.
We try to be very good communicators, because we have to actually discuss the frantic call when they call you. I have a client that called me and said that Mangani, that is the mayor in New York, was gonna drop the state tax in New York to $1 million, and what we're gonna do because this is happening. And I'm like, that's not happening. Probably it's not even gonna pass to the
He
second
can't
round
do
of the
that
debate.
anyway. Yeah, right.
So, but he called me. He was serious. It's like you cannot just laugh, because even for us it sounds outrageous. But he was so serious. He was on the
Right.
phone. He was, what we're doing. What do you think we should do? So we have to, handle the politics, because obviously there are clients that believe what they believe. But then for instance, in my case, they meet people like me. So, but you're not one of those. You are not one of those immigrants. You are the good immigrant. You are the good. And I get that all the time. And I said, we are all the same. If they start rounding up people, they're going to round everybody. I don't walk around with my passport. So it's just our labor as communicators and educators. We're not just lawyers. We're educating to Dan's point. We're trying to be on top of things. If something we don't know, we actually have our duty to look for more, investigate, and educate. To my immigrant families that are concerned, I discuss how the facts, how the law actually works, what they could do to put their minds at ease. But having said that, it is true that it's a very difficult time. I mean, it doesn't matter, even for me, a professional at my level, on an emotional side, it's very stressful, and it has been very heartbreaking to have it to deal with after many years of being a citizen, enjoying this country, loving this country. So a lot of people feel that way, even if they are super wealthy, millionaires, or just the landscape. So we all feel, threatened and scared, and but my job continues, and our job continues. We embrace our clients. We're gonna find a way to help them. We're gonna find information that they require, and hopefully we can guide them correctly.
Heartbreaking is the word. So before we change topics, can you describe in detail what your immigration practice as a firm? What can you do in terms of services, so our audiences
So
understand?
our services are generated, as I said, towards the institutional and towards the business clients. So we take with all of us, we take always a double approach. One is a crisis approach, right? Somebody's knocking on my door saying that they have the authority to do XYZ. What is it that I can do? That's not our best lawyering, though. Our best lawyering is educating both our institutional clients and our commercial clients about, here's what you should be considering doing. And it comes back to estate planning, right? Everything about the best lawyering that we do is helping people make a plan for that which can happen. Estate planning is a little easy, though. We're pretty sure everybody's going to die someday, right? This is a little bit more difficult, though, because there is this concept of this doesn't apply to me. Dan was sharing with you about one of his clients, right? I doubt that he had ever had a thought about this before. All he was doing was expanding his business to a new marketplace, right? But now the question is, what do I need to do about this? And whether it's from a policy perspective inside of your business, a practical perspective, a person to call if something happens, right? That's where I think that our best lawyering is. And we've always done that as a firm. And now we're bringing that to immigration because, to your point, David, that became the issue. You know how we got a data privacy practice? Our clients were having issues with data breaches, right? You know how we got a physical security practice? Our clients were having issues about, am I as an organization appropriately providing for the safety of our team members within the working environment that we have, right? And unfortunately, all of the things that I'm mentioning are coming from those news stories that you talked about, right? And what we've just done as an organization is we looked at it and understood that we have an excellent opportunity to translate this information to actionable plans for our clients. But to do that, we need to bring in people who have expertise in areas that we don't have right now. Back in the day, our firm on its letterhead literally said limited to litigation and environmental law, right? And now we're unlimited, but our growth areas are where the needs are, which a lot of times comes from the news and comes from changes in the law, so that we're able to continue to service the clients because that's what we're here to do. So if we don't know how to do it, we bring in an expert to do it.
No, we're at the heart of lawyering is problem solving, and that's what you guys are all doing very, very well. And that's again why I think there's a real spark. I mean, we all know the practice of law is a business, but we forget sometimes. I know I did when I was younger that what we're here to do is solve problems, and the paycheck should be secondary. And it sounds like you guys keep that priority straight. And so along with that, and I love the evolution, talk to me about your subsidiary companies, Dan. I see you have two different service lines. I think that's one is compliance, and the other one, it sounds like it looks like government affairs. Can you talk a little bit about those? And are the three of you active in that piece of the business? Explain that to me.
So Porzio Government Affairs, very PGA for short, is our lobbying arm located in New Jersey. And they represent a number of businesses, number of business industries, but they can also be really helpful to law firm clients as a result of their ability to connect with various agencies. Sometimes they know the ins and outs of dealing with specific agencies and how to get things taken care of. And we have a client right now who's in the process of going through a transaction with the state of New Jersey that they were told would close around November of 24. And so shockingly, that hasn't happened. And so we were able to reach out to our colleagues on the lobbying side and say, hey, is there somebody else we can get in touch with that can maybe help shepherd this process along? And fingers crossed, we're wrapping that transaction up this week, right? So
problem
by
solving
being
again.
able to
problem solving again, right?
by being able to leverage our lobbying subsidiary, we were able to get a result that really helps our client out. And our client employs a bunch of people that, but for getting through this transaction, all those people would be out of a job.
Yeah.
You know,
well, I just wish I knew you when
New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. So we're talking 3 states are impacted by this, and so our ability to use our lobbying colleagues really impacts the ability for that client to do the thing that they're doing. It's a huge help.
Well, I was going to say, I wish I knew you when I was a New Jersey resident trying to deal with the Division of Motor Vehicle. That's
listen, I can't comment on the DMV.
Yeah, that's some of the worst experiences I've ever had in my life. When I was like 19 years old, trying to get my license renewed. But anyway, that's a whole nother story.
And then our other subsidiaries, Porzio Compliance Services, and they are a kind of like a jack of all trades, right? If it has something to do with some level of compliance, they probably have somebody who's an expert in it. And so sometimes that is, just keeping up with your annual auditing and annual reports you have to provide to various different state and federal agencies. And they will make sure you're actually doing the thing you're supposed to do. And hopefully they will get you as a client in a position where you're not doing it on the 30th when it's due the 1st, but you're doing it 60 days before so that there's plenty of time to get it done. And so by engaging with them, the process becomes a much more managed process, and you have professionals who can say, hey, this is what you need to do in order to do it the best way to minimize the amount of questions that you may ultimately have to answer in the future. Because as I say to people, I may have the perfect answer, but I'd really prefer the question wasn't asked in the first place. And so PCS helps you get to that point where what you're submitting to the agencies you're submitting to is good. And then you don't get the follow-up questions and you move on. And for a business owner, if I'm required to submit a report, I know it's going to take me X hours. I really don't want to have to do Y hours on top of that answering follow-up questions. I want to be able to be done. And PCS helps you get to that point.
Yeah, that's excellent. And all very consistent and synergistic with the legal work you're doing. That's fantastic. And I guess my question at the beginning of that, do you straddle the fence, meaning you do your law work, but then I suppose you also do the work in the ancillary companies, or is that a completely separate?
So I don't work for any of the other the subsidiary companies, but we do have people who do kind of straddle the fence and are on both sides. but we are really good at finding out the people on the other side of the fence, so to speak, who can help our clients get to the goals. And so we handle the legal side and they handle the other aspects of it.
Excellent.
We do though, David. Some of our partners do straddle. So some of our partners within the law firm are the leaders of Porzio Governmental Affairs or are the leaders of our compliance services. And again, this goes to the story that I was talking about, which is clients have problems and we've developed solutions for them. Some of those solutions are legal, right? So the immigration, that's going to be a legal solution. But
Mhm.
some of the solutions that we need to look at are very practical, such as, we have a woman who has a PhD in open information sourcing. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but all I know is that she does wonderful background checks, finding errors, things along those lines,
Mm.
things that business people need, things that we need, and that developed out of individuals having a need. She also offers a service where she looks to minimize your internet footprint. So if I'm looking around here, I've got a lot of footprints in the sand on the internet, and I don't know if I want all of them to still be out there at this point in time in my career. But
Yeah,
those are the
I
kind of
saw last night. No, I'm joking.
yes. Oh, you saw that Instagram. No, I'm teasing. So, it all comes down to, and this is where Bridgeford is so alike, right? Like you guys didn't start saying we are going to custody digital assets, right? Because they didn't exist when Bridgeford started, right? But you didn't start by saying that, right? But everything that you've been sharing about Bridgeford is about how it is that you're seeing a need in the marketplace and creating a solution to solve that need for your clients.
Absolutely.
We're doing the exact same thing. It's just that sometimes it's not a legal solution, sometimes it's a separate service solution.
So I love the way you said that, because I used to struggle with this when I was a young lawyer, because everything I always thought was a legal answer, right? The law was going to solve it. But as I got older and now a business owner and have a different set of values, I suppose, than I did when I was in my 30s, now I'm more aware of the importance of business decisions versus legal decisions. So I love that you have these subsidiaries, because sometimes the law isn't going to give you the answer. Sometimes you just need help on the business decision, and you're able to provide both. And I think that's
Yeah, and it's an extension. Like a lot of law firms have retired judges as mediators, right? Why is
absolutely,
that?
absolutely,
Because
yeah,
if you go to court, it's a 0 and a 1. You're either getting 0 or you're
right,
getting 1. There is no
right.
80-20, 70-30 solution, right? So we want to be able, to offer that. And then, just in terms of how it is that we're working, and Maria can talk more about that, we're putting everything in terms of where might our clients be going, and then focusing on, okay, how do we develop a system or process around this new problem that we're seeing so that we can then scale the solution
Yeah.
to other people, right? So, Marie and I, we talk about all the time. We do this great marketing. We market to people where English is their primary language, right? So, Maria, how can we take advantage of this to make sure that the education that we're providing is going to more people? And looking to your point, a law firm is a business, but a law firm doesn't have to be a business that is just measured in its revenue and its dollars. A law firm can be in a business that's measured in how it is continually evolving to provide the services that people need.
Yeah, because the money will come. I mean, that's, I think you said it exactly right, in my opinion. If you focus on solving the problem and evolving in finding where you can be useful, I say that a lot when Bridgeford wants to be useful, then everybody's going to put food on their table, because we're all doing the right thing. And I think that's what we try to do at Bridgeford for sure. You're right. I mean, the whole need, I thought, of working with international families was a need, because back in the early days before CRS and before everybody started coming to the United States, I made a decision. I wanted Bridgeford to work with international families because they needed a solution, right? It wasn't a money making move. It was, hey, and our first international family, interestingly enough, came from India, and that's how the whole thing kicked off at Bridgeford. I mean, this conversation I can have with you all for the next 3 hours, but if we keep Dan too much longer, his head might explode because of all the tax work he needs to do. But how I would like to sort of transition this to our conclusion is. First of all, you should be congratulated on what you're building. There is clearly a culture and a spark that is very attractive to me, and this is why I wanted you to be on our podcast. Because, as I said, I love talking to thought leaders, and I think that you do occupy a very unique space in the trust industry. So, congratulations on the growth. Very impressed with the Puerto Rico office. It's incredible. I wish that continued success. But I would like to get from each of you, and maybe we'll start with Maria. What is the most exciting aspect of the firm in terms of what you're seeing in the trajectory? What are you most excited about that you're seeing?
Where to start? Porzio has changed the way that I practice law, and I say this all the time. Like, I came a different lawyer 5 years ago. I was a different lawyer than I am now, and not necessarily because I have learned so much. Like, we really are not like, oh, we're collegial. No, we are. So you learn just by having a lunch with us. You're learning from this, and this happened. So not only the amount of information and things that you're learning, but also the way that you do your practice, the ability to really have a partner within your firm. So we really work that we can rely on each other. You can actually reach out to the San Juan office and say, I have a question for a client, and they jump in right away. There's no like, oh, we need to clear your calendar for a month in advance. So Porzio has that collegial, really like, we want to do better and we want to provide the best. And we actually provide follow-up and education. So when I joined Porzio, I was telling Dita, but are you sure that you want to charge this little for this? Because you are providing not only the documents, but you're providing all this guidance and memos and education. She's like, that's how it should be. So for me, it was like a learning experience already as an experienced attorney. So that's what Porzio does, and that's what makes me happy to work here. I don't feel limited anymore by state lines. I don't feel that I cannot do something because if I want to take, guess what? If I want to take a case from somewhere in Spain, I call Deirdre, I call Dan. I'm like, how can we work this out? And the three of us could work on a week and say, let's do this, let's do that, let's reach out to somebody else in the team, and here's your proposal. So that's the best thing in Porzio, in my opinion.
No, it's fantastic. Dan.
So I think what sets us apart from a number of people is we really try hard to never say no to our clients. And there are times when we have to say no, right? Hey, I would like to steal $1,000 from the bank. No, that is not allowed, right? That's kind of a clear-cut case. But when clients come to us with a question that they've probably been told no 100 times before, and we say, well, you know what, you can't do it that way, but maybe you can do it this way. And it might take a little longer. It might require being a little bit more creative and also a little bit more trusting that the process will get you to where you want to get. But our goal is to get you to your goal, right? My goal is whatever yours is. And there's a lot of support within the firm, just not just our team, but firm wide about, hey, this is the problem my client's facing. Has anybody seen something similar? And then we build off of those similar previously solved problems to solve the next problem that's right in front of us right now.
Yeah, you hit on something else that I'm passionate about at Bridgeford for sure. And it's sort of our mantra to lead with yes until the answer has to be no. And so kind of is why I love the international space, because lots of my competitors say no. Lots of my competitors say no to crypto. And the trust industry in particular can be pretty formulaic and rigid for reasons I don't understand, especially now with the power of modern trust law. So with our 12 trust officers now in particular, a lot of the training that we do, and I guess we'll call it articulation training at Bridgeford, is to find a way to always lead with yes. And if the answer is no right out of the gate, then they're going to have a problem with me if I hear about it, because we need to understand how to solve these problems. And I don't have the tool chest that you do, especially since I don't practice law anymore. But the commonality, and it's again another reason why I think we're such kindred spirits, is that's what we're supposed to do in the service industry. And leading with yes is very important to me. And so, Deirdre, I'll let you answer this question.
So first of all, I'm just so delighted, Dan and Maria, to have them as colleagues, and we just to have that alignment. It just makes it a pleasure to get up and work every day, right? Um, Here's what I'm excited about, and this is going to sound a bit heretical as an attorney. I'm excited about AI. I'm excited about how AI is going to transform us,
Yeah.
and this is why I'm excited about it. There's a lot of work that we do as attorneys, and David, there's a lot of work that you do in your firm that people are doing that is very repetitive work. And it's not that it's important work, but candidly, it's work that if it's done repetitive at a 100% quality level can be done incredibly well by an AI agent, right? Why am I excited about that? that frees up the time for Dan and Maria and myself and our other team members to spend time thinking about solutions to problems, to spend time having that educational conversation with somebody, to
Mhm.
spend that extra time to say, you know what, we spoke last week, and I'm really not sure that you understood this point. So I wanted to reach out to you again just to make sure that you were entirely clear on this so that people feel empowered about what it is that they're doing with us, right? And with all of the pressures of the industry, this is the transformative item that will allow us to elevate our communications, which is what, candidly, our clients need from us. And I'm not saying that our clients don't need us to draft a will. Yes, it needs to be done, right? But our clients need us to ensure that they have a will that is drafted, that meets their goals, that meets their objectives, that has asked questions that they haven't considered to be done, and is a will that they understand what it actually says, right? Which oftentimes is the missing point. And why doesn't that happen? It doesn't happen because of time constraints, right? Like, busyness, right? I'm excited about how leveraging AI agents within the practice, obviously managed and monitored by us, no different than we manage and monitor our employees, right? Like they're
Mhm.
not going to go out and just be doing whatever, but
Mhm.
how it's going to create time for us to give better solutions to people's problems,
Yeah.
to give better communication to people, to give better support to people. And I'm going to be very fair about this. I have had the AI agents bring up a solution that I had not thought about before. And you know what it does then? It allows us to think about more things, which is what Dan was talking about.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. And we are fully embracing how AI goes back to helping us serve our clients at Porzio. And that is something that I think is very exciting because everyone's going to be there in 3 to 5 years. I'm excited that we're going to be there first.
Yeah, we have a common excitement. We've hired an AI consultant to teach us how to best integrate this in our practice, and I agree. And it's the same thing with crypto. In my mind, you can pretend it doesn't exist, but it's not going anywhere, right? And so either you put your head in the sand and pretend, or you embrace it, understand it, and figure out how to use it to your benefit. And that's 100% what we're doing at Bridgeford. And I'm not surprised you're doing the same thing. Actually, it's another commonality that I didn't know coming into this, but again, not surprised. Well, again, for those watching and listening, you could now understand why I was excited to talk to the three of these very talented attorneys and have them explain the essence of who the firm is and what Porzio stands for, which is pretty phenomenal. So bios will be attached, contact information will be attached. Please reach out to this firm on any myriad of issues that we've talked about, particularly the immigration crisis I think that we're dealing with in this country. And with that, I will thank the three of you and allow each of you to allow each of you, like somehow like I'm a school teacher teaching a class. But please, anything else you'd like to share before we let Dan go back to his taxes?
Yeah, no, David, I'm going to speak for all of us. We really appreciate the opportunity for this. We love talking about this kind of stuff. And outside of our like weekly meetings, we don't often have an opportunity to do this. So we really appreciate you asking about it. And we very much appreciate our relationship with Bridgeford. As you can tell, our clients mean the world to us, and the way that you treat our clients many times, we don't necessarily have the longest runway in the world to get things done, right? And we really appreciate your team having that same collaborative approach that we do, to allow us to take our really great planning ideas that we have and really be able to bring them to life to people. So I just wanted to say thank you for that. And thank you for the opportunity to geek out a little bit about the things that we're passionate about today.
No, I love it. And thank you all. I look forward to many years of great work together. So thanks again for joining us. And I look forward to a collaboration that's going to last for many, many years.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again for listening to Bridgeford Trust Company's Delivering Direction and Control podcast series. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast to keep posted on when new episodes are added. And for more information, you can visit us online at bridgefordtrust.com.